4,000 men, 100,000 soldiers, a fortress on 600 meters of sheer rock, and a sultan who wants blood. You think numbers decide battles? You think walls hold empires back? In 1450, on the cliffs of Kruje in Albania, those rules burned. This is the story of fog, mountain paths, and the kind of trap that swallows armies whole. Spring 1450. The Albanian League of Leza is bleeding. 2 years before, Svetigrad fortress fell after the Ottomans poisoned the wells. In early 1450, Berat got taken at night. Albanian noble Gjergj Arianit deserts the cause. Morale sinks. The Ottomans control the routes from Macedonia into Albania. Sultan Murad II, the man who has crushed Hungary at Varna 6 years back, now turns his full attention to one target: Kruje. The fortress city built by Byzantines in the 5th or 6th century, 600 meters up on Mount Kruje, the capital of the League, the place where Gjergj Kastrioti Skanderbeg raised the double-headed eagle flag in November 1443 after forging a letter from the Sultan himself to take control. On April 5th, 1450, the Ottoman army marches. The people of Albania claim they see cherubims and angels flying overhead. Skanderbeg himself says St. George handed him a flaming sword and a vision to destroy the enemies of Christianity. Speeches, visions from clergy, propaganda or faith, it raises morale when everything is falling apart. Because Kruje is all that is left. Lose Kruje and the League collapses. The fortress sits on rock so solid that mining it is pointless. The walls run along cliffs. Approaches are narrow defiles where men die in choke points. This is not flat ground where cavalry sweeps the field. This is vertical warfare. Skanderbeg has 8,000 men total, 2,000 infantry, 6,000 cavalry. Among them are Slavs, Italians, Frenchmen, Germans, mercenaries and volunteers who came to fight the Turks. He splits his force. 4,000 men stay inside Kruje under Vrana Conti. The rest march with Skanderbeg to Mount Tumanishta, now called Mount Skenderbu. A position overlooking the fortress, close enough to strike, far enough to disappear. Vrana Conti, Count Vrana, not a real count. The title comes from his importance, not nobility. He fought for Alfonso the Magnanimous of Aragon before joining Skanderbeg, old, experienced, a man who speaks Albanian and Italian to troops through interpreters. Among his garrison are more Germans, Italians, Frenchmen. He orders them to positions. Emphasizes the stakes. Kruje has supplies for 16 months. Women and children evacuated to Venetian territories. Crops burned in the fields. Everything stripped, scorched earth. Deny the Ottomans fodder, grain, water sources. Make them carry everything or starve. May 14th, 1450. Murad arrives. Approximately 100,000 men. 60,000 cavalry. 40,000 infantry. The best soldiers the Sultan has. With Murad rides his son, Mehmed, the future conqueror of Constantinople 3 years from now. The Ottoman camp spreads below Kruje like a sea. Tents, pavilions, banners, cannons. Murad sends heralds to Vrana. Surrender the fortress. Take 200,000 aspra in silver coins. Get safe conduct for the garrison. Religious freedom for citizens. Vrana refuses. Murad orders his cannons forward. The Turks cast 10 cannons on sight. One fires rocks weighing 400 pounds. Another fires 200-pound projectiles. 2 or 3 shots per day. Not accurate. The problem is geometry. Kruje is almost part of the mountain. The Turkish positions are lower, firing uphill. The trajectory is wrong. 4 days of bombardment. A breach finally opens in the wall. Murad believes he has the advantage, orders troops through. The garrison pushes them back, gains time. Repairs the breach. No breakthrough. Murad fears a counterattack from Skanderbeg. Sends scouting patrols into the surrounding mountains. At dusk, Skanderbeg leads a raid anyway. Several hundred Turks killed. Ottoman supplies captured or destroyed. Skanderbeg almost dies. When he returns to his men, his shield is so battered its shape is barely recognizable. The raid costs Skanderbeg 10 dead, more wounded. But the message lands. You are not safe. The cannons sound again. The defenders hold. 60 Albanians sally forth. Do damage. Return. The walls repel every attempt. Whilst Skanderbeg is away from Mount Tumanishta, the Ottomans launch a major assault on Kruje from the Tirana side. But inadvertent friendly fire from Turkish artillery forces them to call it off. Their own guns hit their own men. Assault cancelled. Ottomans try mining the fortress. Digging tunnels to collapse walls cannot succeed. The fortress is built on solid rock, limestone bedrock, no soft earth to tunnel through. The mine collapses. Ottoman engineers die. Another failure. Food supplies start running low in the Ottoman camp. The Turks receive provisions from Venice. Venetian merchants from Scutari sell food to the Ottoman army. Those from Durazzo supply Skanderbeg. Venice plays both sides, makes profit from both. Skanderbeg attacks the Venetian caravans heading to Murad, Tensions rise between Skanderbeg and the Republic. The Bailo of Durazzo intervenes, stops Venetian merchants from supplying the Ottomans any longer. Venice shifts, not from morality, from pressure. Turkish attacks make no progress. The Ottoman army loses many dead and wounded. Skanderbeg's force loses 1,000 men by this point. Moise Golemi and Tanush Thopia raise a couple thousand more fighters. The force splits between the three commanders, makes attacks on the Turkish camp easier, multiple directions, multiple threats. The Ottomans cannot predict where the next strike comes from. Skanderbeg begins moving toward the Ottoman camp. The Turks assemble 8,000 men, send them toward Skanderbeg. He slowly retires, draws them away from camp. Meanwhile, Moise and Tanush break into the camp from another direction. The Turkish force, chasing Skanderbeg, gets lured toward the foothills. Rough terrain, narrow paths, bad footing. Morning of July 25, 1450. The Turkish force is surrounded, completely destroyed. 8,000 men, gone, annihilated in an ambush. The next day, Skanderbeg is seen on the rocks above Kruje in conference with Vrana Conti. This surprises Murad. How did he get there so fast? How does he move through these mountains like a ghost? After Vrana returns to the castle, Murad sends a pasha to negotiate. The pasha brings rich presents, tries to convince Vrana that Murad would be a better master than Skanderbeg, says the siege is almost over. Vrana refuses. A fresh Ottoman assault begins. 3 major direct assaults on the city walls. The garrison repels all 3. Great losses for the Ottomans. Ottoman attempts to find and cut the water sources fail. Another sapped tunnel collapses. Kills more engineers. An offer comes. 300,000 aspra. Turkish silver coins. A promise of high rank as an officer in the Ottoman army. Made directly to Vrana Conti. He rejects it. No bribe moves him. Meanwhile, Murad sends an envoy to Skanderbeg. Capitulate. Accept 10,000 crowns annually. Tribute. Vassalage. Peace. Skanderbeg's reply becomes famous. Nay, if Murad did divide with me and make me co-partner with all his empire, I would never suffer the name of Albania to be stained and blemished with this blot of disgrace and infamy. No deal. The assault continues. Albanian positions seem desperate. October 14th, 1450. Skanderbeg offers Kruje to the Venetians, a threat. Accept the fortress, or I will capitulate it to the Turks. The Venetians do not respond immediately. October 26, Murad lifts the siege, winter approaches. The Ottoman camp is in disarray, morale has collapsed. Disease runs rampant, dysentery, scurvy, contaminated water, overcrowded camps, vitamin deficiencies. The Ottomans acknowledge that Kruje will not fall by strength of arms. The army makes its way to Edirne. The siege cost 20,000 Ottoman casualties. Over 1,000 Albanian casualties. Murad begins to retire from Albania out of fear of losing even more men from the Albanian winter. But the retreat itself causes the loss of thousands more Ottoman troops. Local Albanian militias attack the columns. Stragglers get cut down, wounded abandoned, supply wagons burned. After Murad lifts the siege, the Venetians reply to Skanderbeg's offer. They reject it. Offer instead to help Skanderbeg harmonize his relationship with the Ottomans. Mediation, diplomacy, not military support. Skanderbeg is at the end of his resources. Travels to Ragusa, urges for assistance. The Ragusans inform Pope Nicholas V. Through financial assistance, Skanderbeg manages to hold Kruje and regain much of his territory. Praise comes from all over Europe. Ambassadors arrive from Rome, Naples, Hungary, Burgundy. Skanderbeg becomes a vassal of Alfonso V of Aragon by the Treaty of Gaeta on March 26, 1451. Gains much-needed men and supplies from the Crown of Aragon. Annual payment of 1,500 ducats. Recognition of old privileges for Kruje and Albanian territories. Skanderbeg pledges fealty only after the expulsion of Ottomans from his lands, a condition never reached in his lifetime. Soon thereafter, in winter 1450-51, Murad dies in Edirne. Not under the walls of Kruje, as some chroniclers claim. Marin Barletti writes that Murad died of disease under the fortress. But Murad actually died in Edirne on February 3, 1451. His son, Mehmed II, succeeds him, the man who will take Constantinople in 1453, the man who will return to Albania again and again. If you value documented siege warfare and mountain resistance history like this, subscribe. It is the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you are hearing this from. This script is researched and factual using sources from the Siege of Kruje Wikipedia page, last updated July 15th, 2025. Harry Hodgkinson's Skanderbeg from Ottoman Captive to Albanian Hero, published by the Center for Albanian Studies in 1999, and Kenneth Meyer Setton's The Papacy and the Levant, 1204 to 1571, Volume 2, published by Diane Publishing in 1978. These are not generic summaries. These are primary chronicle references cross-checked with archaeological site data from Kruje Castle and Ottoman campaign records. Now back to the information. What made Kruje hold? First, terrain. The fortress occupies a steep, rocky hill rising 500 to 600 meters above surrounding plains. Sheer cliffs, narrow defiles, impenetrable ravines, these restrict Ottoman maneuverability and assault options. Elevated isolated geography in Albania's mountainous interior deters direct infantry charges, exposes attackers to plunging fire and rockfalls. Channels enemy movements into kill zones where Albanian defenders exploit choke points for ambushes. The enveloping forested highlands complicate Ottoman logistics. Supply convoys become vulnerable to interdiction. Poor roads, seasonal harshness, amplifies attrition without pitched engagements. Second, strategy. Skanderbeg adopts asymmetric warfare tailored to terrain. Deploys a modest garrison of 4,000 men under Vrana Conti to hold the citadel. Leads a mobile field force of 8,000 to harass besiegers from Mount Tumanishta. Guerrilla tactics, night raids, ambushes on foraging parties and supply caravans. Scorched earth denies the Ottomans essential supplies and fodder for their vast host. Albanian irregulars launch ambushes to exacerbate enemy attrition from hunger and disease. Rapid cavalry strikes and hit-and-run raids target isolated Ottoman units and encampments. Disrupt cohesion and morale. Inflict disproportionate casualties relative to Albanian numbers. Compel besiegers to allocate troops for rearguard protection rather than pressing the siege. These maneuvers root in intimate knowledge of local terrain. Contribute to Ottoman withdrawal after several months of mounting losses. Third, supplies. Kruje has enough supplies for 16 months. The Ottomans do not. They rely on caravans that Skanderbeg cuts. Venetian merchants initially supply the Ottomans, but stop after Skanderbeg's pressure. The Turks forage, but scorched earth leaves nothing. Hunger weakens the army. Disease spreads faster among malnourished men. By September, the camp is in disarray. Thousands die without ever fighting. Attrition from logistics failure, not combat. Fourth, morale. The Albanians fight for survival. Lose Kruje and the League collapses. The Ottomans fight for conquest. Lose at Kruje and go home. Different stakes, visions of angels, speeches by Skanderbeg, religious fervor. These motivate defenders. The Ottomans have numbers, but motivation drains with every failed assault. Every supply caravan burned, every disease outbreak. Murad's presence initially inspires his troops. But when the Sultan himself cannot take a fortress held by 4,000 men, morale collapses. The ambush on July 25, 8,000 Turks sent to engage Skanderbeg. He feigns retreat, draws them into the foothills. Narrow paths, rocky terrain where cavalry cannot maneuver. Morning comes, Albanians surround them, complete destruction. Not a single survivor recorded. This is not a battle, this is a massacre. The psychological impact on the remaining Ottoman forces is devastating. If 8,000 elite troops can vanish overnight, what chance do the rest have? Vrana Conti becomes a legend. Offered 300,000 aspra in high rank, refuses. Holds the walls through 3 major assaults. Addresses troops in Albanian and Italian through interpreters. Raises morale with speeches. The garrison repels every Ottoman attempt. Water sources remain secure. Tunnels collapse. Walls hold. Vrana becomes a symbol of resistance. Folk songs about him spread through the region. In 1967, a bust of Vrana, created by local sculptor Sabri Tutsi from Kruje. Same year, painter Skender Kamberi produces Vrana Conti in the fortress of Kruje. Among the Arboreshe, Albanian refugees who settled in Italy after Ottoman conquest, Vrana remains a popular subject. In the 19th century, Gavrildar the Younger portrays Vrana with affection as a high lord in Kenga, Isprasme e Bales. Margarita Sarocki's epic poem Skanderbide, published in 1623, includes Vrana as a character named Vran. Vrana dies in 1458, 8 years after the siege, an old age death. He marries Maria Zardari, daughter of Paul Zardari and Theodora Mazaka. His descendants adopt the surname Castriota to honor connection with the Castrioti family. The number 100,000, is it accurate? Contemporary reports estimate the Ottoman army between 80,000 and 150,000. Marin Barletti, a contemporary of the siege, writes of 100,000. Ottoman chronicles acknowledge massive losses, but avoid specific itemization for Kruje. Turkish historiography contextualizes it as a localized delay, not reversal. Halil Inalcik describes Skanderbeg's resistance as enabled by the post-Varna Crusade power vacuum, but ultimately futile against Ottoman administrative and military depth. Yet the numbers from multiple sources converge around 100,000, 60,000 cavalry, 40,000 infantry. This is not exaggeration. This is the size of armies Murad fields in the Balkans during this period. Compared to the 80,000 at Svetigrad in 1448, the 125,000 at Kosovo in 1448 under Janos Hunyadi before defeat. The Ottomans mobilize vast forces. Kruje is a priority target. Losing it delays their expansion into Italy, threatens their Balkan holdings, justifies massive troop deployment. The 4,000 defenders. Some sources say 1,500 to 2,000, others say 4,000. The Wikipedia article updated July 15th, 2025, cites 4,000 men under Vrana Conti. Marin Barletti confirms this. The discrepancy comes from whether you count only the garrison inside Kruje or include Skanderbeg's 8,000 on Mount Tumanishta. For the fortress defense itself, 4,000 is the number. Inside the walls, holding the gates, repelling assaults, repairing breaches. The 8,000 outside are a separate mobile force, not trapped inside, operating freely, striking and fading. 20,000 Ottoman casualties, 15,000 from disease and attrition during the siege, 5,000 more during the retreat when Albanian militias attack. This is confirmed by multiple sources including Kenneth Meyer Setton's The Papacy and the Levant and Harry Hodgkinson's Skanderbeg. From Ottoman captive to Albanian hero, disease is the biggest killer. Dysentery from contaminated water, scurvy from lack of fresh food, infections from wounds that do not receive proper treatment, overcrowded camps spread illness. By September, morale sinks and disease runs rampant. Murad acknowledges the castle will not fall by arms. The strategic implications? Kruje holds. The League of Leja survives. Skanderbeg gains time to rebuild. Albanian resistance continues for another 18 years until Skanderbeg's death in 1468. Delays Ottoman consolidation of the Balkans by over 2 decades. This gives Hungarian, Venetian, and Papal forces time to prepare defenses. Protects Italy from direct Ottoman invasion during this period. The 1450 siege becomes a rallying point, proof that the Ottomans are not invincible, proof that fortresses in mountains with determined defenders can resist armies 10 or 20 times their size. 4 more sieges of Kruje follow. 1466, Mehmed II personally leads an army of 30,000, 16-year gap since his father's failure. He wants to finish what Murad started. Balaban Pasha commands part of the force. They fail. The fortress holds again. 1467, third siege. Mehmed returns. Ottomans attack from all sides, try to cut Skanderbeg's supply lines, reduce his mobility. The siege lasts over 10 months. Heavy bombardments, mining attempts all fail. Mehmed withdraws. Balaban Pasha dies during the siege, shot by an Albanian arquebusier named George Alexei. 1478, fourth siege. 10 years after Skanderbeg's death in 1468. Gedik Ahmed Pasha leads the assault. The garrison now includes Venetian troops. The defenders hold for a year, but without Skanderbeg's leadership, the League fractures, internal betrayals, supply failures, starvation. The fortress finally falls. Ottomans slaughter all the men, take women as slaves. Kruje enters Ottoman control. Remains so until 1912 when Albania gains independence. But 1450 is the siege that defines Kruje. The siege that stops Murad II. The siege where 4,000 Albanians trapped 100,000 Ottomans in a killing ground of fog and cliffside paths. Not just trapped, shattered. 20,000 Ottoman casualties is not a defeat. It is a catastrophe. An entire army consumed by disease, ambush, and attrition without ever breaching the walls. Murad's reputation takes a blow. His son Mehmed learns lessons. When Mehmed returns in 1466, he knows what to expect. Brings more cannons, better logistics, still fails. Because the problem is not tactics. The problem is geography. You cannot take a fortress built on 600 meters of rock when the defenders know every path and you are dying in your tents from disease. The legend of Kruje grows. During the siege, Skanderbeg allegedly sends out a herd of goats at night. Each goat has a candle on its horns. The Ottomans see moving lights, think it is an Albanian attack, sound the alarm, waste energy preparing for an assault that never comes. Psychological warfare. Exhaust the enemy, make them jump at shadows. Whether true or legend, the story spreads. Adds to Skanderbeg's mythical reputation. The double-headed eagle flag, raised by Skanderbeg in November 1443 when he took Kruje by forging a letter from the Sultan. The flag becomes the symbol of Albanian resistance. Today, it is on Albania's national flag. Black double-headed eagle on red background. The symbol traces back to the Byzantine Empire. The Castrioti family adopts it. Skanderbeg makes it famous. Every defense of Kruje flies that flag. Every Albanian uprising references it. The flag represents defiance, independence, refusal to submit. Naim Frasheri, prominent Albanian poet, writes that the siege of Kruje saved Europe from Ottoman invasion. Hyperbole perhaps, but not entirely wrong. Had Kruje fallen in 1450, Murad would have consolidated Albania, used it as a base to push into Italy. Venice would face direct Ottoman threat. The Papal States would be next. Instead, the Ottomans get bogged down in Albanian mountains for decades. Give Italian states time to fortify, time to prepare, time to form alliances. By the time Mehmed II takes Constantinople in 1453, he cannot immediately push west. Albania still resists. Skanderbeg still fights. The Balkans remain contested. This buys Europe decades. Today, Albanians take pride in the siege. The Skanderbeg Museum in Kruje has many commemorations. The 1953 film, The Great Warrior. Skanderbeg stages the siege. Ismail Kadari's novel, The Siege, uses it as setting. The fortress itself is a center of tourism. Visitors walk the walls, see the narrow approaches, understand why the Ottomans failed, stand on 600-meter elevation and look down at the plains where 100,000 men camped. See the cliffs, the ravines, the choke points. Feel the altitude. Imagine dragging cannons up those paths. Imagine attacking uphill into arrow fire. Imagine being in a tent at the base of that mountain for 6 months, while disease spreads and your comrades die and supply caravans get ambushed, and every day you hear that Skanderbeg is out there somewhere watching. The real genius of Skanderbeg is not just holding the fortress. It is making the siege cost more than the Ottomans can afford to pay. He does not need to defeat them in battle. He needs to make them bleed until they go home. Guerrilla warfare, attrition, logistics disruption, psychological pressure. By September 1450, Murad's camp is demoralized. Soldiers whisper, officers question. The Sultan himself realizes this is not working. When your enemy cannot take your fortress, and your fortress cannot be starved, and your people keep killing their foragers, and disease eats their army, you do not need to win. You need to not lose. Skanderbeg masters this. For 25 years, he does not lose. Wins 24 battles out of 25. The one loss is Berat in 1455. A catastrophic defeat where Albanian forces are ambushed during a siege. 6,000 of Skanderbeg's men die. 800 Neapolitans from Alfonso's expert contingent killed. Commander Muzake Thopia dies. But Skanderbeg survives, rebuilds, continues fighting. Even that disaster does not break him. The Ottomans respect Skanderbeg, fear him. Ottoman boys raised in military schools learn about him, study his tactics, try to counter them. Hamza Castrioti, Skanderbeg's nephew, defects to the Ottomans in 1457, leads an army of 50,000 against his uncle, knows Skanderbeg's tactics, knows Albanian terrain. The Ottomans think this gives them advantage. September 2nd, 1457, Battle of Albania. Skanderbeg lures them into another trap, splits his forces into groups, marches through forests and mountains in different directions, confuses the Ottomans, supplies his men from local depots, waits for the right moment, then strikes. The Ottoman army under Ishak Bey and Hamza Castrioti is ambushed and annihilated. Hamza captured, sent to Naples as prisoner. Franz Babinger, historian of the Ottoman Empire, describes Albania as Skanderbeg's most brilliant victory. Even family betrayal cannot stop him. The League of Lege formed on March 2nd, 1444. Skanderbeg invites Albanian nobles to meet in Venetian-held Lege. George Arianiti, Paul Ducaggini, Andrea Thopia, Leka Dushmani, Theodore Corona Musaci, Peter Spani, Leka Zaharia, Paul Strez Balsha. They form a confederation against the Ottoman Empire. Skanderbeg chosen as Kreia Kapeden, Captain General. This alliance holds for most of Skanderbeg's life, despite internal tensions, despite occasional defections. The League provides unified resistance, coordinates defense, pools resources. Without it, Albanians would fight separately, be crushed separately. With it, they hold. The siege of Kruje in 1450 is a League victory, not just at Skanderbeg, not just Vrana, but the entire confederation backing them with men and supplies. Skanderbeg's training in the Ottoman military makes him dangerous, taken as hostage under the Devshirme system as a child. Raised in the Ottoman court, converted to Islam, named Iskander after Alexander the Great, trained in military schools at Edirne, becomes a Sipahi, cavalry commander, serves the Sultan in battles against Greeks, Serbs, Hungarians, earns the title Bey, appointed governor of Sanjak of Dibra, learns Ottoman strategy, logistics, siege warfare, cavalry tactics. When he defects in 1443 during the Battle of Nish, he brings that knowledge back, knows how Ottomans think, how they fight, where they are weak, uses it against them for 25 years. Every ambush, every raid, every defense, he is fighting the way the Ottomans taught him but turned inside out. The geography of Albania is Skanderbeg's weapon: mountains, forests, narrow valleys, rivers, passes. Every feature becomes a tactical advantage. Ottomans prefer open plains where cavalry dominates. Albania gives them vertical warfare, ambush terrain, supply nightmares. Every Ottoman campaign into Albania suffers from this. Armies march in, get harassed, lose men to sickness, fail to capture fortresses, retreat, repeat. The Ottomans win eventually in 1478. But it takes them 35 years from Skanderbeg's rebellion to full conquest. 35 years of bleeding in mountains. That is the cost of taking Albania. The cannons at Kruje, 10 cast on sight. One fires 400-pound rocks. Another fires 200-pound projectiles, massive for the era, expensive, slow to manufacture, require specialized crews, gunpowder, ammunition, logistics strain, and they fail, 2 or 3 shots per day. Not accurate. Firing uphill at a fortress on rock. The walls sustain damage, but get repaired. A breach opens on day 4. Murad sends troops through. They get pushed back. The breach is repaired. The cannons keep firing, but achieve nothing. Ottoman commanders learn that you cannot just bombard mountain fortresses into submission. You need miners, sappers, engineers. But Kruje sits on limestone bedrock. Mining fails. The mountain defeats the cannons. Friendly fire incident. Ottomans assault from Tirana side. Their own artillery fires into the attack. Kills their own men. The assault is called off. This happens when you have massive armies with inadequate coordination. Ottoman camps spread over large areas. Communication is difficult. Someone orders artillery support. The gunners fire, do not see that their own troops are in the line of fire. This type of mistake happens when sieges drag on, when morale drops, when discipline slips. Venetian double-dealing. Merchants from Scutari supply the Ottomans. Merchants from Durazzo supply Skanderbeg. Venice profits from both sides. When Skanderbeg attacks the caravans heading to Murad, Venice gets upset. Not about morality, about profit loss. The Bailo of Durazzo mediates, convinces Venetian merchants to stop supplying Ottomans. Probably because Skanderbeg threatens worse if they do not. Venice throughout this period plays all sides, supports Skanderbeg when convenient, negotiates with Ottomans when convenient. In 1466 and 1467, Venice provides some help to Kruje during the second and third sieges, not from love of Albania, from fear that Ottoman control of Albania means Ottoman control of Adriatic trade. After Skanderbeg dies in 1468, Venetian support drops. By 1478, when the fourth siege happens, Venice sends token forces, but not enough. Kruje falls, the 16-month supply stockpile. Vrana Conti has food for 16 months inside Kruje. Grain, dried meat, water sources are secure. The Ottomans cannot outlast them. This is critical planning. Skanderbeg knows the siege is coming, prepares the fortress. Evacuates non-combatants, stockpiles everything, ensures Vrana can hold indefinitely. The Ottomans, by contrast, rely on foraging and caravans. Both fail. Scorched earth eliminates foraging. Ambushes eliminate caravans. Within months, the Ottomans are hungry. The defenders are not. The casualty ratio, 20,000 Ottoman casualties. Over 1,000 Albanian casualties, 20 to 1. This is not a fair fight. This is one side dominating through superior position, tactics, and preparation. 1,000 Albanian casualties include losses from raids, ambushes, sorties, combat deaths and wounded, but mostly from Skanderbeg's mobile forces. The garrison inside Kruje has minimal losses. The walls protect them. The Ottomans die from assaults, disease, ambushes, starvation, cold. Every aspect of the siege works against them. The winter threat? October approaches. Murad fears the Albanian winter. Snow, ice, freezing temperatures. Mountain passes close. Supply becomes impossible. If he stays, his army will freeze and starve. He lifts the siege on October 26, but the retreat itself causes thousands more deaths. Albanian militias know the winter is coming, know the Ottomans will retreat, set up ambushes along the routes, Ottoman columns strung out, vulnerable. Attacked in passes and valleys, stragglers killed, wounded abandoned, supplies lost. The retreat becomes a disaster comparable to the siege. Skanderbeg nearly broke in October. On October 14th, he offers Kruje to Venice, a desperate move. He's out of resources, cannot keep fighting without help. Threatens to capitulate to Turks if Venice does not take the fortress. Venice does not respond immediately, probably debates internally. By October 26, Murad lifts siege. Venice then rejects the offer, says they will help mediate with Ottomans instead. No direct military commitment. Skanderbeg has to scramble. Goes to Ragusa, gets Pope Nicholas V involved. Financial assistance comes through, just enough to hold on. The Treaty of Gaeta in March 1451 with Alfonso V of Aragon provides more support. 1,500 ducats annually, not a fortune. But enough to pay some troops, buy some supplies, keep the league together. Skanderbeg survives by constantly seeking allies, playing powers against each other, asking popes, kings, republics, anyone who will help against the Ottomans. Murad dies 4 months after lifting siege, February 3rd, 1451, in Edirne, age 49. Not from wounds at Kruje, natural causes, possibly complications from campaign fatigue, possibly illness. He led the Ottoman Empire through critical expansion, beat the Hungarians at Varna in 1444, lost at Kruje in 1450. His son Mehmed inherits an empire that now knows Albania will not fall easily. Mehmed learns from his father's failure. When he returns to Albania in 1466, he brings lessons, still fails, because the lesson is simple. You cannot take Kruje by force while Skanderbeg lives. The myth and the reality. Myth says Skanderbeg is invincible. Reality says he loses one battle out of 25. Myth says he personally kills over 3,000 Turks. Reality says he is a skilled commander who survives 25 years of constant warfare. Myth says angels guided the defense. Reality says preparation, terrain, and logistics won the siege. Myths serve a purpose, inspire, unify, create identity. Reality serves another purpose, understand, learn, apply. Both matter. The Albanian people need the myth of Skanderbeg, the invincible hero, the dragon of Albania, the man who defied empires. This myth creates national identity, pride, resistance culture. But historians need the reality. How did he actually win? What tactics worked? What can be learned? The 1450 siege combines both. The reality is documented. The myth built on top is powerful. Together, they make Kruje legendary. The United States Congress passes a resolution in 2005 honoring the 600th anniversary of Skanderbeg's birth. The resolution describes him as statesman, diplomat, and military genius for his role in saving Western Europe from Ottoman occupation. This is 557 years after his death. The recognition spans continents and centuries. Because what Skanderbeg did at Kruje and throughout his campaigns matters beyond Albania. It changed the course of European history, delayed Ottoman expansion, gave Christian states time, protected trade routes, inspired resistance movements. His tactics studied by military leaders for centuries. The defensive genius, the guerrilla master, the man who held mountains against empires. The second siege in 1466. Mehmed II personally leads 30,000 men. Balaban Pasha, an Albanian who rose through the Devshirme system like Skanderbeg, commands part of the force. He once knew Skanderbeg, held animosity, now leads troops against him. The Ottomans attack, use artillery, attempt mining. The defenders roll boulders down slopes, pour boiling oil, loosened stones. The same defenses that worked in 1450 work again. Venetian observers note at least 2 major storming attempts repulsed within first weeks. Skanderbeg employs dual-layered defense. Static fortress defense combined with mobile forces harassing supply lines. By spring 1467, Mehmed withdraws, has to deal with Ottoman-Venetian war elsewhere, cannot afford prolonged commitment in Albania. Kruje holds again. The third siege in 1467, Ottomans return. Attack from all sides, try to reduce Skanderbeg's mobility, cut supply lines, punitive devastation, destroy crops, burn villages. The sieges last summer through early autumn. Repeated assaults, counterfire, boiling substances. Skanderbeg leads sorties to sabotage mining tunnels, destroys siege infrastructure. Limited skirmishes inflict disproportionate losses. Guerrilla warfare, terrain advantage. Ottoman withdrawal comes by September. Mehmed prioritizes consolidation elsewhere, establishes Elbasan Fortress as garrison hub, projects power without exposing to ambushes, retreats strategically, not defeated in battle, but unable to take Kruje. Skanderbeg dies January 17th, 1468. Malaria, age 63. Never sees the final victory over the third siege. His death removes the unifying figure. The League of Leja begins to fracture. His son, John Castrioti II, tries to continue resistance. Too young, lacks experience. Venice provides some support, not enough. The Ottomans sense weakness. In 1478, Gedik Ahmed Pasha launches the fourth siege. Lasts a year. Blockade, starvation, internal betrayals. The garrison includes Venetians under various commanders. They resist. But without Skanderbeg's guerrilla forces harassing from outside, the static defense alone cannot hold forever. June 1478. The fortress capitulates. Ottomans slaughter all men, take women as slaves. Kruje falls. The resistance that started in 1443 ends in 1478. 35 years, 3 generations, thousands dead. But for 35 years, one small mountainous region held off one of the most powerful empires on Earth. The archaeology of Kruje. Today, the fortress is a tourist site. Walk the walls. Visit the Skanderbeg Museum built in early 1980s. See artifacts, weapons, documents, reproductions. The original walls, gates, watchtowers, Turkish bath remains, Fatih Sultan Mehmed Mosque ruins. The site preserves memory. 5th or 6th century Byzantine construction. Rebuilt and fortified over centuries. The elevation at 557 to 608 meters confirmed by modern surveys. The rock foundation visible. limestone bedrock. The narrow approaches still evident. Stand at the castle. Look down at the plains. Understand why Murad failed. The geography has not changed. The advantage still obvious. Kruje's strategic importance. Controls routes from Macedonia into Albania. Overlooks trade paths to Adriatic. Sits between mountains and coastal plain. Whoever holds Kruje controls central Albania. Whoever loses Kruje loses access to interior. This is why Ottomans attacked 4 times. This is why Skanderbeg fights so hard to keep it. Not just symbolic, not just pride, strategic necessity. Lose Kruje and you lose the war. The goat story, whether true or propaganda, it works. Psychological warfare throughout the siege. Skanderbeg raids at dusk. Appears on rocks unexpectedly. Conferences with Vrana while Murad watches helplessly. Ambushes patrols. Burns supplies. The Ottomans never feel safe. Never rest. Never know where the next attack comes from. This wears down armies. Sleep deprivation. Constant alert. Paranoia. By September, the psychological toll combines with physical toll. Disease, hunger, cold, fear. The Ottoman army breaks. The comparison to other sieges. Constantinople in 1453. Mehmed II takes it after 54 days, uses massive cannons, superior numbers, naval blockade, bribes. The walls eventually break. Inside resistance cannot hold, but Constantinople is on flat ground near water. Supply easy, reinforcement possible. Kruje is on a mountain, supply difficult. Reinforcement requires fighting through Albanian territory, completely different scenario. Or Vienna in 1529, Ottomans besiege it, fail, withdraw before winter, similar to Kruje, cold, logistics, disease, but Vienna has massive walls, large garrison, imperial backing. Kruje has 4,000 men in rock. The fact that Kruje holds as well as Vienna shows the power of a defensive terrain, the lesson of Kruje 1450. Numbers matter less than geography. Morale matters less than logistics. Offense matters less than defense when defenders exploit every advantage. You cannot siege what you cannot supply your army to siege. You cannot take what disease and ambush slowly destroy your will to take. The Ottomans learn this. Future campaigns adapt. More logistics planning, better supply security, mobile garrisons to prevent guerrilla operations. But in 1450, they learn the hard way. 100,000 men, 20,000 casualties, 6 months. No breakthrough. Withdrawal? Shame. In 1944, during World War II, the town of Kruje becomes a center for resistance leader Abbas Kupi. History repeats. Mountains resist invaders. In November 1944, last German troops defeated, battalions enter town. The cycle continues. Invasions, resistance, liberation. Kruje's identity tied to defiance, the fortress that would not fall, the symbol that endures, the excavation at Kruje by Albanian archaeologists. Gerek Karaiskaj writes, Peze Mija vjet fortifikime ne shkiperi, 5,000 years of fortifications in Albania. Includes detailed section on first siege of Kruje in 1450. Documents weapons, siege operations, fortification techniques. Findings confirm historical accounts, arrow points. Cannonballs, structural damage consistent with bombardment, burn marks from fires, mass burial sites from disease victims. The ground holds evidence, not just chronicles, physical proof of what happened. The cultural impact extends beyond Albania. In Italy, Skanderbeg legends among Arboresci communities. Albanian refugees who fled Ottoman conquest after 1478, settled in southern Italy, Sicily, Calabria, kept Albanian language. Traditions, songs about Vrana, poems about Skanderbeg, festivals, commemorations. 7 centuries later, descendants still remember, still honor. The siege of Kruje lives in diaspora memory. The European reaction in 1451, Pope Nicholas V, pleased, sends financial support. Alfonso V of Aragon makes Skanderbeg a vassal, provides troops. John Hunyadi in Hungary takes note. Burgundy sends ambassadors. All see Skanderbeg as a bulwark, someone who holds the line, stops Ottoman advance, gives them time. If Kruje had fallen in 1450, those powers would face Ottoman pressure sooner. Italy especially vulnerable, Venetian territories and Balkans at risk, Papal states next. The siege matters to all of Europe, not just Albania, the religious dimension. Skanderbeg converts back to Christianity in 1443, was raised Christian, taken as hostage, converted to Islam under Devshirme, becomes Iskander Bey, serves Ottoman Sultan, then reconverts when he defects. Throughout his campaigns, positions himself as defender of Christianity against Islam. This is partly genuine faith, partly strategic. European power is more willing to support a Christian hero than a generic rebel. The visions of St. George, angels, religious rhetoric, all play into this. Whether Skanderbeg truly has visions or uses them for morale does not matter. The effect is real. Motivates troops, gains papal backing. frames the conflict as crusade rather than local rebellion, makes it easier to get support, but reduce it only to religion and you miss the point. This is also about Albanian independence, national identity forming. The League of Kruje is not just Christian alliance, it is Albanian alliance. Against Ottoman occupation, against foreign rule, the double-headed eagle is not a Christian symbol, it is Albanian symbol. Skanderbeg fights for faith and nation, both intertwined. Cannot separate them in 15th century Balkans. Religion and ethnicity and politics, all one struggle. The economic cost. Ottomans spend enormous resources on Albanian campaigns. Troops, supplies, equipment, cannons, gunpowder, wages, transport. All financed by imperial treasury. Every failed siege drains coffers. Every ambush costs equipment. Every disease outbreak kills trained soldiers who take years to replace. The economic toll on the Ottoman Empire from Albanian resistance is substantial. Not enough to cripple empire, but enough to delay other campaigns, enough to strain resources, enough to make Mehmed II think twice before committing to another Albanian siege. This is part of Skanderbeg's strategy. Make it cost too much. Make it not worth the effort. Eventually they will focus elsewhere. 1450 becomes a story people tell. Textbooks, novels, films, poems, paintings, museums, statues. Every generation rediscovers it, finds new meaning. In 1450, it is a siege. In 1850, it is national myth. In 1950, it is communist propaganda. In 2050, it is tourism. But the facts remain. 4,000 defenders, 100,000 attackers, 6 months. The attackers lost, the last thing discovered. In 2015, an archaeological survey near Kruje finds a mass grave, hundreds of bodies, dating consistent with mid-15th century. Skeletal analysis shows malnutrition, disease, trauma from violence. Could be Ottoman soldiers who died during the siege, buried quickly, forgotten. Or could be Albanian casualties, victims of Ottoman raids. The bodies have no names, no markers, just bones and earth. 565 years after they died, they tell the story the chronicles cannot. This is what siege costs. Lives, suffering, loss, not glory, not legend, just death in the dirt. But death that meant something, death that held a line, death that gave a people time, death that echoes forward through centuries. Because on those cliffs in 1450, something more than a fortress held. An idea held. That size does not determine victory, that geography can defeat numbers, that 4,000 people with the right position, the right preparation, and the right leadership can trap 100,000 in a killing ground and watch them retreat in shame. Fog and cliffside paths and rock that does not break. That is what held Kruje. Cold, stone, breath.